Yo guys, back at you with now my BT12 rulings video. I've been working on this for a while just to kind of make sure I had everything I wanted to talk about. Luckily, there's not too many complicated rulings in BT12, but as always, I'm going to kind of be going over some of the newer archetypes, some of the newer card interactions, just to make sure if you are playing these at locals or anything like that, you can maybe reference this video or feel free to ask me a question out in the comment section below, and we'll make sure that we get that answer, guys. So let's go ahead and get started about some of the interactions in BT12. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the Hunter's deck. So the main thing I want to talk about first is going to be the fact that all of these cards reference the keyword save. So for example here, the egg, the Monimon, says that if this Digimon has save in its card text, draw one card. Similarly, the level 3s all say Digivolve from 0 from level 2 if text contains save. The level 4 say the same thing, if this Digimon has save, you can evolve it over it for level 3. And everything like that. Digicross one card with save its card text. So I want to first clarify that what it means by having save in its card text is exactly what you think it would be. It basically means if you see save anywhere on the Digimon or the Tamer or whatever, that constitutes as a card containing the text save. So for example, Dracmon here can Digivolve for a 0 cost on top of the Monimon because the Monimon has save literally written on the card. So what I can do is Digivolve this for 0, draw a card, and then I could go ahead and do the same thing with Shoutmon, Digivolve 2 from level 3 if text contains save. Go ahead, Digivolve this for a 2 cost, and that'll go ahead and conclude my turn. Similarly, the old Clock Shot Man says reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add a Digimon card with save in its text and one card with Hunter in its trait. The second part's pretty self-explanatory. The Hunter trait is listed on the Tamers here just like a type would be on the Digimon, but that works the exact same way. Now the one thing I do want to mention that doesn't work the same way is going to be material save. So for example, if you have a deck like Crossheart where you've got the material save keyword, something like a Shoutmon here. So Shoutmon Cross Forward has the material save 2 keyword. That does not count as having save in its card text. It has to literally have the keyword save. So something like Darulumon might work because it does have on deletion save here, but any of the Shoutmon Megazords will not work because they don't have save. Instead, they have material save. So just want to clear that up, the fact that those two are different, and the fact that having save in its text literally just means anywhere on the card if it has save. It doesn't necessarily just mean having save in effect, like Damemon does have on deletion save, but it also counts as having just save written on it, like you here just has the keyword save on the card. So that's going to be the first point I wanted to make. The next card I want to talk about is going to be Mr. Quartzmon over here. So again, similarly to the other cards, this card has a special condition where you can Digivolve 9 from a level 5 if card text contains save. So for example, Arrestardramon Superior Mode here is a level 5 Digimon and his text does indeed contain save. So what you can do is just go ahead and Digivolve this card on top of that card for a 9 cost. So maybe if I'm at 0 here, I'll go ahead and pay 9 and draw my card to do so. Now the next thing I want to mention is this card's when Digivolving, all turns, and when attacking effects, just to clear up some confusions. So first of all, let's say it's passed back to my turn. Let's say the previous turn I'm going to Digivolve this for 9, and then what happens here is it's going to suspend everything on the field, all Digimon, except this card, as well as suspending all Tamers. So we're going to go ahead and suspend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards here. So it's going to suspend everything else on the field. And then Quartzmon says gain 1 memory for every 2 suspended Digimon and or Tamers in play. So now there are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 suspended things in play, Digimon and or Tamers. So what we're going to do is we're going to gain 3 memory back. So it's going to put my opponent to 6. After that, that's all the turns, all the effects that have, applied while passing turn. My opponent's going to go ahead and go during their unsuspend phase. let's say they go ahead, draw their cards, blah blah blah, and then these aren't going to unsuspend, so they're just gonna have to deal with that. Let's say they pass me back to maybe like 4 memory or something. So what's gonna happen? Start of my turn again. All Digimon and Tamers don't unsuspend, so that includes my own. So start of my turn, I'll go ahead and unsuspend phase. Nothing happens. I'll draw for turn. I'll move out into the breeding area, and of course, as maybe doesn't need to be mentioned, a breeding area Digimon don't count towards that first effect. So you see I didn't count the Shoutmon over here because it isn't visible to Quartzmon. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, breeding phase, I'm going to move this out, and then what I can do is go ahead and swing into security maybe. Let's say my opponent has like a couple security cards. Let's say they've got like 2 security. So I can trigger the when attacking effect of Quartzmon to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and or Tamers. Of course, in this scenario, my opponent doesn't have any for me to choose. And then for every 5 suspended Digimon and or Tamers, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. Now, when this happens, obviously Quartzmon is already suspended, so it does count itself in that total. So currently there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 suspended things in play. So it will go ahead and trash 1 security card. This will go to trash, and it'll security check the next one. If, for example, let's say I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say there's 9 suspended things on field already, and then I can go ahead and swing with Quartzmon. Quartzmon becomes the 10th suspended, and now because it is at the time of using it when attacking, there are 2 sets of 5 suspended Digimon and or Tamers. My opponent will lose 2 security cards, and then thus the game would be closed out because I am attacking for lethal. So that's one thing I wanted to mention when it comes to Quartzmon. The last thing I want to talk about is going to be Arrestardramon Superior Mode. So this card, relatively self-explanatory, but a cool thing you can do is, let's say again my opponent has 2 security cards. What I can do is go ahead and attack into my opponent's security at 1 check 10,000 security check. It lives, and then maybe I'll go ahead and pass turn by just like playing this Beelzemon from my hand for 5 cost. It goes to my opponent's turn after my effects have finished resolving. So now I can go ahead and resolve this end of attack. Once per turn, if this Digimon has 4 or more materials, the Digivolution cards, it can attack without suspending. So of course, in this scenario, it would not be able to use its effect that is an activation condition. So in the off scenario, like let's say you had some other end of turn effect that would stick for underneath it, you could resolve that effect first and then attack with Arrestardramon, but I don't really think there's anything in the game that can do that. But let's say I have 4 materials, maybe something like this. End of turn, what I can do is like maybe I attacked before and then now I'm end of turn, I can go ahead and attack once again. You do everything that would happen under a normal attack, except you just don't suspend the Digimon. So if, for example, you didn't use any of these once per turn when attacking, you could use those if they weren't once per turn. Maybe if you didn't attack previously, maybe if your guy just stayed suspended or something, you could trigger any of these one attackings, and then you'll just go ahead and declare your attack as usual, but you just won't suspend the Arrestardramon. So I can go ahead and attack security end of turn, and then security check and Taiki, and everything else would follow as normal. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about when it comes to the Hunters deck. So the next couple of rulings are going to be just all from different decks basically, but so the one I wanted to talk about for Red Hybrid, well, this is a relatively straightforward deck. There is a scenario that kind of confused me a little bit the first time I encountered it, but what I wanted to talk about was Takuya's inherited effect, where it says once per turn, your turn, when this Digimon checks your opponent's security, gain 2 memory. So in this scenario, let's go ahead and say I've got Burning Greymon. What I can go ahead and do is use a condition where it says you may Digivolve this card from your hand on top of one of your Takuyas as if it is a level 3 red Digimon for a memory cost of 2. So I'm going to go ahead, pay 2, draw my card. Let's say this Takuya was played last turn, so I don't have Summoning Sickness. What I can do is go ahead, swing security. Of course, this one Digivolving has already triggered, so I have plus 2,000 from Burning Gray and plus 2,000 from Takuya, so I'm sitting at 10,000 for my Burning Greymon. So now what's going to happen is security check is going to occur, and then the security check is going to be Quartzmon. Now what I do want to mention is in the scenario where this Burning Greymon would die by battle, any pending effects that happen as a result of the security being revealed do trigger first. So first of all, security effects will trigger. Quartzmon doesn't have any. Then pending effects, then battle. Okay, so battle is the last thing to happen, and because of that, we have a pending effect for when this Digimon checks your opponent's security, gain 2 memory. This actually triggers before the battle. So what would happen in this scenario is the pending effect would trigger, I would gain 2 memory, and then the battle would happen. Quartzmon would delete the Burning Gray, and this would go to trash. Let's say in any other scenario where my Digimon would be deleted, let's say I do the same thing where I Digivolve this for 2, and then I swing security, and then the first check is a Fly Bullet. In this scenario, the security effect of the revealed card triggers first. So the security effect is to activate this card's main effect, which is to delete a level 6 or lower Digimon. So that would thus delete the Burning Greymon, and then while the pending trigger was kind of the condition was met, it is no longer on the field, so you cannot activate the effect to then gain 2 memory. So in a scenario with a security effect, this works exactly like Wargreymon X antibody or something like BT4 Kari, where anytime a card checks when a security card is reduced or lost or checked or whatever, that happens between, like it happens after security effects, but before a battle would happen. So that's something I want to mention as far as Red Hybrid goes. So the next thing I want to mention is, again, relatively straightforward, but I just wanted to clear it up just because of the fact that this is an all turns effect. So what I want to talk about here is going to be Ulforce X antibody. He's got this really cool all turns effect where once per turn, when this Digimon unsuspends, if you've got a blue tamer in play or it has Ulforce Vidramon, you can return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to the hand. So in this scenario, let's say it's my opponent's turn, and the previous turn I had played out this Rina to give this Ulforce Vidramon evade and a blocker, so it is currently an evade blocker. What's going to happen is, let's say my opponent goes ahead and swings security. What they can do is then trigger anyone attacking, so let's say if they met this condition, they could do it with the Psychmon, but for now, just declaring an attack. So now it comes over to reaction timing. What I can do is then, since this is a blocker, I can go ahead and suspend the Ulforce Vidramon to redirect the attack to the Ulforce. What would then happen is I could trigger Rina's all turns effects because it is all turns, and it says when your Vidramon, it becomes suspended. So this would again still happen before the attack. What I can do is suspend the Rina to then trigger the on evolve of one of my Vidramon. So I can trigger the on evolve of Ulforce to unsuspend this Digimon. And then because it was unsuspended, the second turn, the second effect all turns triggers to then bounce back a Digimon with the lowest level. There's only one target, so this is going to go ahead and be bounced back. In this scenario, the Shoutmon would not actually battle the Ulforce because it was bounced back before the attack actually resolves, but maybe in some other scenario this would be useful. But the cool thing is that you can bounce Digimon during your opponent's turn, and then you still have an unsuspended Ulforce. You can potentially block again. You can block 2 things and potentially bounce something. So maybe if, for example, my opponent had this scenario where we did the opposite of where, like, let's say he attacked with the Shoutmon, I block, I then trigger Rina to unsuspend this to trigger its effect to bounce the Psychmon. So now he's out of this attack. This got blocked, so the Shoutmon got deleted, and then I still have one more block for another following attack. Really, really strong stuff. Again, just something I want to mention because I don't think as Digimon players we're too used to a lot of things going on during our opponent's turn, or at least our own effects, but that's something I did want to mention. The thing I want to mention is going to be from Beelzemon, but as opposed to rulings, which I think a lot of people have talked about at this point, and I've talked about as well, let's go ahead and just talk about a couple cards that I think have been prone to misinterpreting. So what I want to talk about here is going to be Wizardmon X antibody as well as Ballmon X antibody. So both these cards are new to BT12 and both have really strong effects. So both of them have the effect of when Digivolving trash some cards, but then in the case where you don't have the appropriate card underneath it, it does a different effect. So let's say in this scenario I've got just like an Impmon, and what I can do is go ahead, let's say this is in play, maybe this is over here, and I can go ahead and Digivolve. Let's say I'm like 5 memory. I can Digivolve my Wizardmon for a cost of 2, draw a card, and then utilize is when Digivolving. It says trash the top 2 cards of your deck. But if it has Wizardmon or X antibody, you gain blocker instead. What I want to point out is that you can only do one of the effects. So in this scenario, since it's got Impmon, you do trash the top 2 cards of your deck. So I would go ahead and trash 2, and then maybe some other effect would trigger like BT or EX2 Impmon. But in the scenario where, let's say you had a Wizardmon underneath it. So let's say you've got Promo Wizardmon already in play, and what you're going to do is go ahead and Digivolve from 0. What you would then do is, because it's got Wizardmon, you gain blocker instead. So in this scenario, you do not trash 2 cards from your deck. Again, depending on the scenario, this might be a better effect for you, but just in general, if you are evolving over Wizardmon with Wizardmon X, you do not get to trash 2 cards. The same thing applies to Beelzemon. Let's say I'm at 3 memory, I can go ahead and Digivolve Beelzemon X Antibody, draw my card, and then his effect will apply where when Digivolving, I can do the first effect, return 1 X Antibody. The second effect says trash top 3, but if it's got Beelzemon or X Antibody in its Digivolution cards, you delete a level 4 lower Digimon instead. So in this scenario, I would just simply trash top 3, but in the case where, let's say I had the Beelzemon underneath it, I would not be able to trash top 3. I would then, in this scenario, be able to delete a level 4. So I would go ahead and delete this Shoutmon over here. So just keep in mind that those one Digivolvings, you do have to choose one or the other depending on which one is in the source, what cards are in your sources. So if you've got Wizardmon X Antibody, you can't trash 2 cards if you're evolving over Wizardmon, and similarly with Beelzemon, you can't trash 3 if you're Digivolving over Beelzemon. So the last thing I want to talk about isn't super complicated, but it does have to deal with Marcus and Chaosdramon, the new support from BT12. So what I want to bring up is the fact that Marcus is a yellow and red tamer pretty much all the time on the field, unless you are utilizing his first effect, the start of main phase effect. If you utilize this effect, so let's say it's the start of my turn, and then I do my draw phase, hatching phase, unsuspend, whatever, and then now start of my main phase, since I've got a Digimon with Agumon or Greymon's name, I can pay 1 memory to then treat this as a Digimon with 3000 DP, can't Digivolve for the turn. The thing I want to mention is the fact that it says this Digimon, or this tamer, is also treated as a Digimon. So the fact is that any effect that would apply to a Digimon can apply to this card as well. So let's say for somehow like I swing into security and then my opponent check card, the card is Fly Bullet. What he can do is delete my Marcus Daemon because it is treated as a Digimon. Generally you wouldn't want to do that, but just let's say in this scenario he chooses to do so, this will be deleted and it'll go to trash as normal. Now what I do want to say is, in private knowledge areas like the hand, or in the trash generally, even though that's not private knowledge, but just in the hand or trash, this card is always treated as a tamer unless it was deleted by an effect while it was being treated as a Digimon. So I don't know when this would come up, but let's say like again, the scenario happens where I run into security, my opponent reveals a Fly Bullet, this dies, and then if I had a card that said like when one of your Digimon is deleted, or if your opponent had a card that said when one of your opponent's Digimon is deleted, they could trigger it off of that instance. I can't really think of a card that would do this just off the top of my head, but you guys kind of get my drift. So any instance of a card that says, works off of a Digimon being deleted, if this was being treated as a Digimon that turn, it would trigger. The other thing I want to mention is it's still treated as a Digimon and tamer on the field simultaneously if you do have that effect applied. So in a scenario, let's say it's my turn, let's say I'm at 3, I can go ahead and Digivolve this Chaosdramon for a cost of 3, of course draw my card and whatever, and let's say this was already treated as a tamer this turn. What is going to happen with Chaosdramon's effect? It says one of your opponent's Digimon and all of your opponent's security Digimon get minus 3,000 for each yellow and or red tamer you have in play. So in this effect, it does count this Marcus, even though it is a Digimon, it's still a tamer because of the fact that it says this tamer is also treated as a Digimon. So it's treated as both for this turn. So in this scenario, I could do minus 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Let's say this is like my deck or something. So minus 18,000 to one of my opponent's Digimon, as well as all of the security Digimon for the turn. Another thing you could do is like tactical retreat this. So let's say if you start of your turn, you paid 1 to treat this as a Digimon. If you activated tactical retreat, you could definitely put Marcus on top of your security because again, it is a Digimon at that point. Any card that counts a Digimon, Spiral Masquerade, whatever, would work so long as you have met the condition of using the start of main phase effect to be able to treat Marcus as a Digimon, guys. So that's basically all of the effects I want to talk about. And just real quick, guys, there is actually one more important ruling I wanted to mention regarding Shoutmon Cross 7 Superior Mode. This came up a little bit for me when I was testing out this deck, and I kind of wanted to go over this card because it is a little bit weird and there's a lot of things going on. So let's say your board looks something like this, and what you want to do is play the Shoutmon Cross 7 Superior Mode from your hand. You obviously can't evolve it, you have to play it. So let's kind of talk about the sequence of events that would follow. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to declare that you are playing Superior Mode from your hand. Then what you can do is activate the interruptive effect that says when you would play a card. So in this case, the Shoutmon Cross 7 has this effect that says when it would be played, you may place one of your Shoutmon in play, meaning in the battle area, in its Digivolution cards, and then you may reduce the play cost by 1 and place cards from your Digivolution, from your trash as Digivolution cards for a Digicross, allowing you to utilize your trash for a Digicross as well. So the way this works is, one, you declare that you're going to use that effect, so then Shoutmon immediately goes underneath and reduces the cost by 1. This is the first thing that happens, so Shoutmon, regular Shoutmon, does need to be the first Digivolution card underneath the Cross 7. What will then happen is that now that you are performing the Digicross, you will then place Digicross materials that say Digicross -1 infinite Digimon cards with different card numbers and with Cross Heart or Blue Flare in their traits. Now you will actually perform the Digicross just like normal. You will stick things from your hand and or field into your materials in whatever order, because it doesn't specify an order as opposed to something like Shoutmon Cross 7 that has a specific order to the Digimon, but in this case it's any amount of Digimon. And then you can also, of course, use your trash for this. Now, because this is a separate effect than the first one, even though the Digicross specifies they have to be Digicross materials with different card numbers, this first Shoutmon you place is not part of that Digicross. So in essence, you can have two Shoutmons underneath, one from the initial first condition and then one from the Digicross, because it's not, the first one is not part of the Digicross. So what I'll do is I declare I'm playing this, stick the Shoutmon underneath, -1 to it, and then I can go ahead and Digicross things from my field or hand. So let's go ahead and put Omni Shoutmon, Cross 7, in whatever order, just anything that has Blue Flare and or Cross Heart in its traits. So I'm going to go ahead and utilize all those because those all have different card numbers. And then I can also utilize Taiki's effect because it is when you would play a Digimon. This also happens at the same time as that first interruptive effect. So then I can go ahead and use Greymon for a Digicross as well. So I'm going to order these in whatever order I want. So let's say I wanted something like this. And then you're going to calculate the total cost reduction. So this first Shoutmon minus it by 1, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 materials here. So total of -9 is going to be a 6 play cost. And then you will go ahead and activate the on play effect. And the other thing I did want to mention about this effect is, let's say for this example, your opponent, I don't know, maybe they've got a Starmons in play with a Digi-Egg underneath it. So when you do return materials from your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of the deck, if there's a Digi-Egg in that stack, it does go to the bottom of the Digi-Egg deck, and then this will go to the bottom of the deck afterwards. They do happen separately, but as part of one effect. So guys, that's pretty much everything I want to talk about concerning Superior Mode. Oh, and last thing really quick before I forget, I did want to at least mention Machinedramon as a deck, the Chaosdramon X antibody that comes out of BT12. This card's really cool for two reasons. Well, I guess two separate cards, but kind of two support cards work in the same deck. So number one, Chaosdramon X antibody. This card, the thing that's relevant here is that it has the all turns effect of this Digimon gains all effects from Machinedramon and Chaosdramon in its Digivolution cards. So let's say you have this condition met where you've got like a Chaosdramon on the field, and then you're going to Digivolve from 2 on top of that Chaosdramon. Because as soon as you put it on top of the regular Chaosdramon, it has this all turns effect active. You can indeed trigger the when Digivolving effect of the regular Chaosdramon as if it was the X antibody's effect. Because it's an all turns effect, it happens as soon as this Digimon hits the board, and then you can trigger the on Digivolve as if it was this regular, as if it was the Chaosdramon X antibody's use effect to then, stick something underneath it, Digivolve 1, blah, blah, blah. And you also get the all turns effect. When this Digimon would be deleted from hand or deck, you may trash 2 level 5s. So then you can choose to use both of those all turns. Let's say if your opponent Gaia Forces it or something, you can first trigger this effect to trash the top card of their security, and then use this effect to then, instead of being deleted, you can trash 2 cards to prevent it from leaving play. So really strong stuff here. The second thing I want to mention is for Super Eradication attack. This card is just worded maybe not weirdly, but it works a little bit differently than you might think. So this card says choose one of your opponent's Digimon Cyborg, or one of your Digimon with Cyborg and Machine and Stray. So let's say I've got a regular Chaosdramon, or maybe X antibody with regular Chaosdramon underneath. What I can do is delete that Digimon and one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to that chosen Digimon. So let's say I choose the X antibody, I delete this and one of my opponent's Digimon. But what I can do is, instead of, or when it would be deleted, you can again trigger the interruptive effect or the all turns effects to trash the top card of your opponent's security, and then all turns, when it would be deleted or returned to hand or deck, you can trash 2 cards from its Digivolution cards to prevent it from leaving play. This works differently than something like Deathclaw, where Deathclaw, you have to delete your Digimon, or your Digimon has to be deleted in order for it to work. So let's say in the case, like, let's say you had like some purple source or something, you try to Deathclaw your own Chaosdramon, but then you saved it instead, you would not delete your opponent's level 4 lower Digimon. Similarly with something like Pandemonium Flame, a lot of the purple cards work that way, where you need to delete that Digimon in order to get the actual effect. Super Eradication attack does not work like that. You don't have to delete the Digimon to delete your opponent's Digimon, you just do both at the same time. So you just delete them, you just do as much as possible. So that's another thing I wanted to mention. But guys, that's basically going to do it for this video. That's pretty much most of the level, that's pretty much most of the BT12 kind of rulings I could think of for the time being. But if there are more complicated ones that arise in the future, I'll be sure to cover that in a future video. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.